All right, everybody, we are going to start this webinar, and this is going to be the G5000 integrated flight deck into the Excel and the XLS. Just a little bit of what we're going to talk about so you know what we're in for is we're going to talk about the G5000, which obviously that's the name of the webinar, but a lot of people probably haven't seen Garmin equipment, especially in jets, probably very used to Honeywell, Collins, and Universal. We're going to show you some imagery of actually what it looks like so you can see what you're getting. I know a big question is, what does it replace? There are so many different cockpit retrofit type programs out there, and it gets confusing. Like, I know maybe we're doing a display upgrade. Are we doing a GPS upgrade? I mean, really, what are we getting for this overhaul of the avionics? Another big topic is the repairs and database costs. And of course, that's really what's hitting the legacy avionics pretty hard right now, because it's even hard to get products sometimes, and it's really expensive. And I know ongoing database costs really kind of gets people a little upset as well. Another big one is resale value. That is obviously huge. If you're going to invest a lot of money into an Excel, you want to know what you're going to get for your money. And then we're going to talk about the key takeaways at the end. And we'll talk about questions on the end. Also, with questions, you'll notice you've got an area for you to type. Feel free to send a question at any time. And we're going to get to those at the end of the webinar. And Eric is also in the room taking care of all the computer stuff and watching the questions. He knows more than everyone, so he's going to answer all the questions, right, Eric?
That's correct.
In the room, you've got me there on the left, Michael Kuzatz. I'm the Eastern Regional Avionics Sales Manager. I feel like that should turn into an acronym, right? We're in aviation. It's too long.
Errors.
And then we've got Jeff Simmons here as well, avionics sales. He's been here for around 10 years, but you spent a lot of time on the floor at the line and
Avionics line, and then out at the satellites as well. I was out at the Denver satellite for several years. So out in the field, if you will.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. We got Jim Laster here, was also out in the Denver satellite area.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Denver, did all my initial flying out there. And actually, I've known Jeff for 5 years and just learned that topic. So.
I know, it just connected like right now. I just realized that you probably have run into each other
in a previous life.
And probably like literally.
Yeah.
You probably ran into him.
Yeah. I think that was that time that you
I was much smaller than.
Anyway, moving on. So I think the big question for a lot of people is, you're looking at Garmin and getting to the bigger iron is, I mean, really does Garmin have really experience into the heavy iron?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get it quite a bit. And a lot of people remember us more as the Part 23 world. But in the last few years, we've really hit home a lot of the OEM side first, such as the Citation lines you're seeing here, Citation 10, the Sovereign, Latitude, Longitude. We really kind of got our feet wet with Lear and Bombardier and the 7075. All of those platforms are not really the same. They all can have their own flavor. And then we got our first real jump at the aftermarket world with the Beechjet with the 400A and 400XP. The really cool part about that is we really start to develop relationships with the proper people, the director of maintenance and chief pilot types, and really getting kind of a different feel as what Textron and Bombardier want to produce is one thing, but having a core market come back and say, hey, these are things that are important to us. So we took all the lessons learned from the Beechjet and actually put those towards the Citation XLS. Not only that, we actually trimmed back the amount of time it took us to do, which was about 3.5 hours or 3 to 3.5 years with the Beechjet, down to about 2.5 years with the XLS.
How many Beechjets roughly?
So we're up over 40.
Okay.
We've had a lot of really good success right off the bat with it. And then just recently, again, we're having kind of a renaissance. I think what may have happened is the priority for the Beechjets ended up being ADS-B. And there was a ton of them that got the bridge program for ADS-B. So I think there's 60 of those are out there roughly that have got our bridge in. So there's potentially for quite a bit more Beechjets to come online too.
That's just the numbers were interesting. So you've sold around 40 of the Beechjets. How many Excels have you sold before the thing even started? Before the STC was available, how many Excels were sold?
So this is an interesting thing. When we do our STC developments, it's not something we do in the dark. We actually pick what platforms make sense, and we really do our homework on what we're going to do. And we were nervous about what a good number would be for prior. And we kind of thought 25 would be a right number. So we came out the gate with, hey, if we can get 25 people signed up beforehand, we'll be really good. 30 days in, we realized that was the wrong number. So we have over 50 pre-sold and are already going. So the first couple are already in the wild off going outside of the Surfbirds. But yeah, Dave Brown, which is the specialist for this, has actually been very busy chasing stuff around, and we'll be getting some of these delivered here in the near future as well. So
including Duncan's.
Yeah, including Robert's.
So I think, we've got an Excel going on here, and I know Jeff, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you've been in the middle of that as well.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, back in the 80s and stuff, you could get an STC on an airplane to do just about anything. And that world has changed quite a bit. So you're doing a big mod here. It's a huge STC. You just said it. What, the Beechjet took how many years? 3.5.
3.5 almost.
And you went down to 2.5.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe STCs aren't really easy to do.
What is it? They're always under budget and come in early.
Right.
So what we do is we sit down and we look at the fleet size first. We have to make sure there's enough there. And this one, there's over 700 that were applicable for the XLS. We do not cover the Plus models. Sorry for anyone that's on board there. But they are similar airframes and types. So the really cool thing is that it makes this easier for to streamline the cert effect, as we're not going through multiple iterations of the airplane. Pratt & Whitney were the same engine types. That was really good. The good news is we've worked with some of the Primus suite before that we were going to keep on board, such as their TCAS. That's going to linger on the airplane, but the rest of it will be changed. But that's good because you don't need to redesign anything there. And then the market size. If I told you that the Beechjets were being sold for $700,000, that's not what they were being sold for when we decided to do the program.
Right.
They were around $2 to $3 million hull value, and even today we're still getting them at that less than $1 million hull value to invest a significant amount of money into that. So with the hull value currently for the XLS of being between $3 and $4 million, I think, is that still right, Jeff?
Yeah. You're looking anywhere from the 4 million to upper fours down to upper threes, that range in there.
But that airplane's so well supported. Textron takes great care of it. The engines are tight. I mean, and I always felt like the Excel was kind of like the jet of the King Airs.
Exactly.
It's the workhorse. It's the workhorse airplane.
Well, and aircraft value has a lot to do with the shape that the aircraft is in, but the airplane has a great engine. It's got a great airframe. Like you said, support is still out there for the airplane.
Absolutely.
They're flying 13,000 plus hours on some of these airplanes and still going. But avionics for most operators is where people start running into problems.
And that's true. And here's a slide of the original cockpit, and it's not terrible. It's not like it's an old 6-pack or anything. You are glass, but honestly, sometimes that's your curse, because with these displays, they're old CRT displays, they're getting hard to support. And that's not a dig on Honeywell at all. I mean, Garmin, you guys, even as older boxes, it just gets hard to support these. And again, with the airplane doing so well, and you've got old avionics here. I mean, when this thing came out, if you had your $300 CD player, Jim, you had to be an early adopter of a CD player.
All joking aside, I was the first one to have an MP3 CD that actually played. Old 756 Romy, that was my whip. No, actually, funny, I show this picture to customers, and then you know what I say? What do you see here? And they say a lot of money. So yeah, there's just a ton of costs and repairs and upheld and RMUs, the CRTs.
And I think, and so again, and this has always been the difficult part, because for the pilots, they're like, yeah, we need to upgrade. But again, for people paying for all this, it's like, well, hey, can you get to point A to point B safe? Of course you can. But the technology from 20 years has changed. Obviously, we're going through an ADS-B mandate because of traffic. We've got a lot of traffic. So there's more traffic in the territory, or in the region. There's more airspace issues. Now we're really driven by GPS, LPVs. I don't even know the number. I remember, God, it was 10 years ago when LPV surpassed ILSs. Really? Mm-hmm. Now it's massive.
It's actually funny you bring that up. I've had a couple operators come find me that operate some of the older Lears that have to get LPV because that's the only way in and out of certain areas. And they're losing charter based on the fact they are not even able to get into these airfields.
Right.
So it's going to be the wave of the future. VORs are being decommissioned, and really LPV is going to be kind of the wave of the future.
And it's a big thing. As a flight instructor, and I'm working with instrument students, and I'm talking about a T route. What's a T route? And it's like, it's a blue line, and it's a GPS route. These Victor Airways are starting to move over to T routes, but they're GPS driven. And again, these old airplanes, they can do them, but it's getting really, really hard to do. So I think as the as the technology advances and the demands of the aircraft's avionics and the airspace and the traffic, the avionics needs to, it needs to be advanced so it can keep up with everything. And I think that's the big question. I mean, yeah, you've got some new technology, but there is a lot to it. And I think the big question everybody has, does the G5000 do all that?
Absolutely. It's the alphabet soup of compliance, first of all. So obviously we're going to be ADSB compliant. Obviously we're going to do the LPV. We also do domestic datacom. We'll do fans. So all of the acronyms, we cover them all. So that's good news. There's the ongoing best equipped, best served is kind of how we do from there. But the overview really kind of just scratches at the surface, kind of looking at this picture. You can see we can do quite a bit. A lot of it's in hidden boxes you won't see, but yeah, absolutely. We do all kinds of, from SVT to charts to data-driven charts in there as well. So as you can see there on the left, it's pretty nice to have everything there electronically.
Yeah.
Not to mention that we open up a portal to your most popular handheld device, being an iPad. So there's a lot of interconnection through there as well. So
I was like, where are we going with opening up a portal? I'm like, this is like But yes, iPads will do that too.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's funny because even on the old steam gauges, like the GDL52 is becoming extremely popular in heavy iron because they want something to attach the iPad to.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for that portable device for us, and we've had many successes on airlines that people have actually heard of, but I can't comment on. So
totally,
like the iPads, the controls on here are getting to that type of technology.
It's true. Well, and the nice thing is I mean, you talk about the FMS. I mean, I was sitting in a Challenger, and the guy was loading a flight plan. I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing.
Neither did he.
But again, and everyone's like, oh, I don't like that new touchscreen technology. But yeah, they'll be on ForeFlight and be whizzing through that, or Garmin Pilot, and they're like, I love this. So it's like, the technology's starting to blend. Yes. And it's what the interesting part. There's more to the cockpit here. You're going to see, as the data entry on both sides here. I'm going to attempt to use the John Madden tool. I'm getting told not to. Oh, I did have Phil stop by. Well, anyway, we're not going to use the John Madden tool. Sorry about that. But down at the bottom on the right-hand picture, you're going to see that's where your data entry is. And it's a touchscreen. And we'll get into that. I know a lot of people have a lot of worries about touchscreen on that, whereas over on the left side, it's just the numerical keypad. We'll get a little bit more into that, though.
So, we put out some good information on, highlighting the G5000. Let's start focusing on the PFD. What can we do on the PFD? That's
a good question there. And so you've got a nice, big, rich display here. And with this display, you're going to see, the first thing that everyone sees, especially with an image like this, is the synthetic vision. And so that is an option, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But with this, you've got and everything's in the normal place that you're used to. So your airspeed is going to be over there, right where you're used to. The altimeter is going to be there. Your vertical speed is here. But I think some of the other things you're used to on there is the HSI right there in the middle. One of the things that we're not going to talk a whole lot about is there's a thing called
ghosting.
There's more to
ghosting
it.
Needles.
Ghosting needles. So you're going to see this needle right here. It's a gray needle, and then you're going to see kind of a gray little diamond there. So in this situation, this is more like you've got an ILS loaded, but you're still following GPS.
Yeah, I got a good example of this one. So I was north of Minneapolis, St. Paul, flying into the downtown area, and you have to track outbound on a VOR, which you would do with GPS, and then catch an ILS that's not a 90-degree intercept. It's not even really a 100-degree intercept.
Right.
So having that ghosted needle for the ILS coming in for us was awesome, because you don't guess when it's going to be there. You get to see everything all at once.
Right. So your main HSI, your main guidance is there, but you see the ghosting of what's coming at you.
Which is, pivotal, especially in an IMC, especially in St. Paul when you're by big buildings in downtown areas. And, you get the warm, fuzzy feeling when you get a view like this.
And there's a few other things. Of course, you've got your comm status and I think this is, you can see you've got tower here. And I know when Garmin came out with reverse lookup, I was like, this is super stupid.
Yeah.
And then once it came out, I'm
I
like,
use it every time.
I know. And then I feel like I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah. You can hand it off. You don't remember if it's departure or approach.
Right.
It's a little bit more professional in the aspect that you get to see who you've dialed in, or more importantly, if you misdial.
That I was gonna say, because I'll put something in and nothing pops up, and I'm like, I got the wrong frequency.
Yeah,
in
wrong
here.
one.
I screwed this up. So
Well, and don't forget about the ability to split the screen.
this is true. I mean, actually, we say this is really uncluttered. Most of us pilots like to clutter things up. So on the primary flight display, yeah, you're right. You get this.
I mean, it's a huge benefit to the pilot. I mean, you get everything that the pilot has in his scan that he didn't have before. Your geo reference chart, your synthetic vision with runway layout, which is visible when you're doing approaches at night in bad weather or even in congested areas.
And that's the key there. I mean, you think about this. This is roughly the 6-pack that we were looking at. Now I've got my approach plate on the left there. There's a few other things. Again, it's just good information. I've got the rad out sitting right here. So I can go see what's going on there. I've got my barrel minimums there. So again, I know how far I'm going down. It's just, there's a lot of information.
There's a 3D runway out there.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, I don't need synthetic vision, but the first time you're in actual and you actually see and what's amazing is Garmin has engineered that display. So when you look out the cockpit, that's about what the runway is going to look like.
Yep.
And so it's dead on every time.
It's funny. It's not even IMC nighttime as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, my thing is also lining up in the wrong runway.
Yeah, right.
So
the Harrison Ford.
Right.
And it doesn't just necessarily have to be a chart. You can change that split screen display to show the information that you want to see.
And that's true. You're right. You can do traffic. You could do weather over there. I think, we've got, looks like a terrain page here going into Aspen.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of color. So you got color shading even on the synthetic vision as well.
Yeah, this is going to be, before you get to a really bad day, this is kind of what you'll see. So if you see the red line that says pull up, we're a little below what we're supposed to be doing flying into Aspen. You get an amazing overview here. This is actually easy to do. I don't know how many of you guys have flown into here. The approach end is kind of an unforgiving area, as you can see ahead. You'll see the runway out in front, but if you look on the left side as the split, there's multiple colors for green, yellow, and red. And then the legend will tell you the red is you're less than 100 feet, yellow is 1,000 to 100. So you get a really good idea of what you're doing with a quick peek at the PFD as if you have your eyes out.
Right.
Obviously, we can couple these approaches so it won't get so bad, but there's also this great safety feeling of what you're looking at. And if you want to dedicate full PFD, not only does it be on the split screen, this also could be on the MFD as well.
Yeah,
so
good point.
just options.
And I think I had a situation years ago similar, and I know a lot of you guys, if you've ever flown out of John Toon over in Nashville, I was going from John Toon to Nashville, just the National and BNA. It was IMC I just picked up, and there's a bunch of big hills out there. And, of course, they put really big towers on those really big hills. I took off, and I got a heading, and the approach control put me right straight at a tower. Didn't know it was there. I turned, and on synthetic vision, there was a big red triangle, and it said obstacle. And I got that, like when you're getting pulled over by a cop feeling, like, oh, yeah. And the good thing is approach control fixed it. They're like, no, I'll turn to another heading, but I could see why. But again, if approach control wouldn't have done anything, would have augured right into that tower. Yeah. And it's just the nice feeling that someone's looking after you.
So, I mean, we've gone over the PFD pretty good. What about the MFD? What does it have to offer?
And that's the thing. I mean, so you said 12-inch display. So now you've got a big MFD here as well.
And so, looking at this, it can show traffic, weather, airports, airspace, and, you'll notice on the left-hand side, the engine data as well.
Exactly. And again, with this huge display, you can split this as well. So then you've got, the radar. So you've got dedicated radar over here on the right. You can put traffic over there. You can put your chart over there. You've got your moving map over here on the left. And so you've just got a lot going on here.
And the cool thing is both pilots can access that.
That's a good point.
It's not locked out to the pilot, or at least the guy that thinks he's important.
Right.
So talking about the engine instruments here.
Right.
So the MFD has that dedicated engine indicating system, there,
Right.
which saves space.
Right.
I mean, you got this big clunky area now. I mean, that's the size of a shoebox almost is what it is. And, you know, the old gauges were good in their time, but now they're harder to support. Your cost is going up on those.
Yeah.
But also, you've gone from 3 points of failure, if not more, to one single point of failure.
That's a good point.
Now it's just on a single display.
Right. And I guess that's a fair point, because when you lose one of these or the analog systems, these old ones, it's it's dead. You lost that display. I'm going to guess you guys had to go through some kind of reversionary mode or be able to do something.
Yeah, before we jump out of here, I wonder how many DOMs in here would love to be able to hot swap those displays around to find out if they were dead or not.
That's true.
So you actually can do that with our displays. So the configurations are actually held within the config mod.
Oh.
So as you swap displays hot, you can find out if it's a bad display or something else is
That's a
competing
good
there.
point.
So for directors of maintenance, we try to give you a hug as well, just in that. But to your point, for reversionary mode, this is as bad of a day as you can really get, and it doesn't look that bad. So if your MFD goes out, we'll slice everything out over the PFDs. You have your full engine gauges, you'll have your map, and then so it's kind of a 60-40 split, and then your 40 is cut in half for those. To get a severe, like dual battery outlet, you have 30 minutes of this before you run out. So the reality is,
And so that's the thing. I mean, you think about what are the odds anyone's ever going to use a standby instrument in this airplane?
almost none.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
Yeah, but the FAA requires us to have one.
I
so
get it.
You're going to get one. But
I mean,
the good news is here, your safety will not dramatically decline, because today, if you lost, you are on a standby.
Right.
With no autopilot, no nothing. This, if you have your one gen running, your autopilot stays engaged.
right.
And you can fly the airplane like you normally would down to a safe place and not have that sheer panic, of what's going on.
Well, 30 minutes, I mean, that's a lot of time to get to the ground. I mean, granted, I'm not going to, dampen how important it is to
Right,
get down.
yeah.
I mean, in that emergency situation, but 30 minutes is quite a bit of time to find a
Absolutely.
safe spot to go.
Yeah, and it's amazing how fast the time will evaporate if you think it's long, especially at altitude if something stupid happened, because you still have to shoot an approach at times. But
Yeah, fair point.
But if you have it, you're going to use every minute of it, and you're going to be happy
Right.
to have that there. So, and again, we get to use the autopilot the whole time. So,
Yeah.
in those stressful situations, we always talk about, man, we really need to depopulate what the pilot's handling and let us carry some of that load. While you figure out where you're going, we'll fly the airplane.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, as talking about like everything going wrong, I think one of the more impressive things. So this is on your EIS strip, and you'll notice like over here, it's normally blank, which is what you want, because, oh, wow, about hit the wrong button there. Clear. Over here is where your CAS message system is over here. So it stays empty for the most part. So you've got everything over here to do that. Now, talking about an STC effort, adding CAS messaging to your displays, I don't think anyone has an idea of how difficult that is.
it is fairly dramatic for one reason. You have got to prove in every configuration what you're doing will remain the same. So, for instance, if we have hydraulic pressure, does that mean with one gen on or two gens on, are we going to keep doing a system safety analysis on every single CAS message? So we could just leave the eyebrow the way it is and all those unlit lamps up there, or we go through and try to really clean it up and give you that valuable real estate.
And that's exactly, I mean, now look at this. So this is the point here, is all this area is dedicated
To CAS.
to CAS.
Yeah.
And it's just, for the most part, just unlit bulbs
Yep.
sitting up there in prime real estate, which is where you want to be able to grab. I mean, it's a perfect position. Well, maybe for an autopilot controller.
Yeah. Perfect.
Real quick before we
Yeah.
steer away from that, John Croce brought up a good question. Does the system have an automatic, like emergency descent mode?
Really good question. So as of today, there is not an EDM built into it. It has everything in it that it would need to do that. We were talking about cert efforts.
Yeah.
For us to cert EDM on the initial cert would have continued. We'd still be in cert.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it's not something that we probably will never do. It's just something we had to get the initial copy out.
Mhm.
And the cool part is it doesn't. I doubt it would require any more additional hardware.
Mhm.
So the guys are getting the updates now.
But it's on the roadmap.
And I think that's a lot of people don't realize, if you're not used to Garmin, especially in the smaller aircraft, software updates, continuously updating the system to do more. I mean, you guys were still doing 430 and 530 software updates into ADSB. I mean, that product was well out of production, and you were doing software updates.
So we were told last week in our flight ops meeting that we were number 3 in the world for flight test for the 5th year in a row. So the only 2 that are in front of us are Airbus and Boeing. So our flight test is continual and forever.
Right.
We're still doing updates to the Beechjet. We're still doing updates to the King Air that we've had out. That STC's been out for forever.
Long time.
Yeah, we have over 600 copies of G1000 sold in the King Airs. We're still doing updates to that. Right. So what that point is, that software is free from Garmin. Obviously, there's going to be a cost to getting it installed and signed off, but we're not going to rake you over for anything that we break out new. So, for instance, if there's something similar to EDM that we can bring out at literally no hardware cost, that will be rolled up in a software version that we'll be able to produce later.
So the main point is it's on the roadmap.
Yep.
So as technology comes out, more and more things software driven are on the roadmap.
I think that's the key. And the whole point what I was making at the beginning of this was older avionics, it's not keeping up with the times. Whereas, this is brand new, but we know just technology is going to keep marching on, and Garmin does a good job on trying to keep up with the system that they have and doing it through software.
And keeping up with that, they moved the cast to the MFD,
right,
which now leaves that space above the displays open and available.
Right.
And there is.
Yeah, so now you've got a nice autopilot controller here.
Yeah, so it's really funny because if you put pilots in the seats, the very first thing they reach for is the thing that was never there, and it's the autopilot controller.
Like down?
Yeah,
they're looking down by their hip?
Yeah, they're looking down and they're like, oh, wait, it's up here. And then all of them notice the very next thing is their eyes are outside.
Right.
And where their eyes were not ever down, head down. Everything's up in front of them. Both pilots have controls, you can see here, as we can go left or right side. When you see pretty basic functions, right? So nav mode, heading mode, it's not an overly complicated thing. We're not going to make you do a full, technology review on what's going to happen. It's going to be fairly straightforward. If you have any Garmin time or have flown G3 or 5000 or even 1000 in the past, This is going to be a breeze.
And the thing is, it's not like it's a basic system. It's just as advanced as any of the other autopilots in the Citation 10.
Correct.
I mean, right. So you get
nothing like keeping an airplane that wants to tumble at high altitude straight and level. That's a fun one. So I figured if we can do an autopilot in that thing, we can do it in anything.
So this is just more than servos that are getting replaced in a control panel for the autopilot.
Absolutely. It's actually the whole system is actually being replaced minus a few key parts. But the reality is you're going to get the 14-inch PFD displays, which are the 1405s. And then you're going to get the MFDs as well. And then, MFD singular. And then you'll get the 2 controller, the GTC 875s. You'll notice here, if you just a quick peek at those are your alphanumeric. It's how you type in your frequencies. Pretty easy. If you can use a cell phone, you can use that. On the right side, that's how you operate and use the FMS. Without ever knowing anything, I bet you could tell me where to find charts or where you can tell me to find the checklist. If you can use an iPad, you can definitely use this. But again, just simplicity of use. And the same thing, it streamlines the pilot training as it mirrors any of the other G3 and 5000.
And I think that was the point we were making a little bit earlier as far as the data entry goes. I know most of the guys know how to use a UNS type system, but again, this just makes it just so easy for anyone to transition into this airplane.
And for the guys that don't want to give it up, there are 3 knobs for you on each.
That's true, and that is a fair point. I think we never talk about that enough. You can do, and I still even do it on GTNs. I'll still use the knobs to turn it to frequency. You don't have to type it in if you don't want to.
I think it's like 80% of it that you can still use via knob. So those extremely turbulent days that are just not fun,
right?
You have a knob, so it's not the end of the world.
So, I mean, when it is turbulent, is there anything like physically to those GCUs that for ease of navigating through there?
Great question. So I get this question a ton. You can actually grab the entire GTC with your entire hand from left to right and use your index finger and your middle finger to go through and tap out whatever you need.
So you can hang on because it's not flush. It's not
Correct.
flush. It's sticking out a little bit.
And it's tied to the airplane, so it moves with it. So you are literally bouncing with it. And I can tell you how I know it's tied. I've been in it before when it's been pretty fun ride.
A little sporty.
Yeah, it's been good. The only thing I've come to find is that when you're reaching back for the for the dials there, you'll notice that each one is a different shape. So you'll remember which one's which. And it takes you a couple flights, but then you figure out the soft ones, your range one, the middle ones for volume, and the far right ones what you're activating. So you'll spend a lot of time looking straight ahead, but reaching down, you never have to look down because of the shapes and everything. So human factors did a great job of that.
What else we got?
We also have the automatic control, which we've already talked about. Those are our servos. Those are not the same servos that we're selling into Cessna 172s. So a lot of guys ask me the questions, can your servos handle it? And I'm like, yes. And I immediately bring up the Citation 10 as those are our servos. That's our entire autopilot logic. That's what's been ported over here. We're using our GSA 9000s, which are the big boy servos.
And that was kind of the thing. I know a lot. Again, this is a big upgrade, and changing out an autopilot
is not easy.
I mean, well, it's not easy, but nobody. Does anybody do that? I mean, as far as upgrades,
just us.
Yeah.
To be fair, in the legacy airframes that have gone through this, there were analog autopilots and there were analog displays, and there were a lot of that stuff. So it was easier to change one or two things. In this time frame of an airframe, everything would integrated, and at that point, if it's like pulling that string on a sweater. You're going to end up with a pile of yarn at the end. That's exactly what happened to our STC. You can't just pull out a transponder or whatever. Well, in that case, you can. But in this case, once you remove one thing, it's going to start pulling everything out.
So you might as well just do it all.
Yep. Weather radar, which is our most advanced weather radar that we have. Audio panels, if you look there on the GTC, that's how you control it. Really, again, super simple to use.
So it's a GMA 36B. B stands for
two, meaning we can use two of them. There's a GMA 36, and then there's a GMX 36B, which are Bravo models, which we're allowed to have dual audio panels, which is on a knock on us for some of the retrofit models.
Right.
If you try to do GTNs into like the Citation legacies,
you can only do one.
You can only do one audio panels. Right. That's what I do.
Are these Bluetooth?
They are not.
All right, fine.
GIAs, which are our engine analyzers, and that magic box.
No.
And then where's it? GIA? Oh, GIA. I'm sorry. GPS Navcom. Sorry, I can't read. That's why they made me in sales. Those are essentially GTNs without faceplates.
Okay.
So they are going to give you your GPS, your nav, your comm, which you'll be selecting on the GTCs themselves. Right. Our big bad boy for the GDC, which is our data computer. This is where you get your RVSM data as well.
Oh, good. Yep.
GEA, these are the engine analyzers, and that's where you'll get the data there on the MFD. GDL 69, this is one of the remote boxes. This is something that a lot of pilots don't have today.
Right.
You're going to get a data link weather that gets updated every 5 minutes via satellite. So as soon as the airplane's powered on, it starts receiving it. So before your wheel's up, you're going to have METAR staffs and loaded weather for you before you go.
And I think the big thing now, I know ADS-B weather is getting updated, but I don't know because the one thing I loved about XM is it shows you snow and mix.
Yep.
And I don't think ADS-B is going to do that. No. And that's always, especially for you going up into Minnesota, I'm sure you looked at a lot of colorful weather going. Ew.
A lot of pink and blue and light blue. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So what this does is XM will display different versions of returns. So here what we're looking at is the green, darker green, and the yellow. Right. That's obviously just precip, no problem. But what you do want to know is, especially at the lower levels, is what if you're going to be flying into like ice and or slush or any of those other things that are going to be happening there. And they depict those in magenta, light blue, and dark blue.
I think the big thing is you got onboard weather radar, and that's great to have. But sometimes you're 500 miles out, and you want to see what's coming in, and you've got that storm creeping in.
Correct. And that's the awesome part. And you'll be able to animate this as well, which is a great thing. I just used that this past week. Got a large cell from the size of Houston to Chicago that was going.
Jeez.
Part of it was very angry. The other part was dissipating.
Right.
And you don't know that till you actually animate it. And you're like, oh, wow, it's really deafening here. So we went north of it and no problem.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a big deal.
TAS, we talked about this before, where you get the additional terrain alerts.
But this is TAS A. This is the serious TAS. Yeah.
You have to have radar altimeter and everything, on which we have.
Yep.
Dual GTX 3000s. This brings up a good point. There are over 100 of you guys already out there with these in there.
Oh, good. Wow.
Yeah. So in the XLS, we believe there's over 100 are already taken this STC.
Wow.
So if you are out there, I have good news for you. You don't have to rebuy your transponders. So in this case, we'll be able to just upgrade the rest of the units. But we do obviously have our own transponders. These are full change 7.1 compliance, and they're great.
Yeah.
Two transponders.
gets it done.
Yep.
And so honestly, so that was everything that's standard. And of course, there's some options. Everything's got to have options. Synthetic vision, I get it. I mean, a lot of people, it's kind of a love-hate thing. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's a love and hate until you get it. And then I don't think anyone said, hey, I hate synthetic vision. Everyone flies with it. And again, it's just a level of situational awareness you get. Jim, I'm going to lean on you on this one. So I have not used Surface Watch. I know for the FAA, it's a huge deal. And a lot of people are like, oh, my God, who would use the wrong runway? We know there's accidents. It happens.
I call this the Han Solo. So the key here is if you're lined up at a taxiway or a wrong runway that you dialed in, it'll alert to you that you're going to land on the wrong thing. Very funny. I really wish I had this a few years ago coming into Lincoln. So they're in Lincoln. It's a very popular place to land on the wrong runway.
Right.
They have dual runways. One looks like the side of the ramp, which I can tell you from firsthand. So I was coming from the north, and thank God I had loaded the procedure to that runway.
Oh.
And I saw this white line coming at me really fast, and I looked back, and now I understand how people can spin and stall when you're 1,000 feet above the ground. So it's just another one of those another one of those layers of safety.
Yeah.
And what it'll yell you that you're landing on the wrong runway or lined up, or if you're about to take off on a taxiway or
the runway you weren't. And so you dial in. So like when you're getting ready to taxi, do you dial in?
Absolutely.
You dial in the runway you're going to.
17 or 17 left, or if you're a midway, 1953.
Right.
So it'll tell you check runway. You also will get, if you have the perfin loaded in here, it'll tell you runway too short or the takeoff area is too long. So all of that's added in there. And again, and the other really cool part is everyday use of this, it'll give you the next taxiway. So like if they say, hey, take a hotel, it'll say the next one is hotel or next one's November. So it just leads you into like having on ground, next up.
So you always look like a pro when you have no idea where you're at.
Exactly. I always joke around. I get to anywhere in the world, tell them on the ground.
Right.
Then I'm lost.
One of the other options is the underspeed protection. And I'm not sure how many people are opting for this. I mean, you guys are pretty good pilots. And this is kind of a situation where you've got the autopilot is engaged, and maybe you've got low power set and you've asked it to climb 5,000 foot a minute.
Just like you do in a go-around.
Yeah, fair point. Okay. So you've got the power back, you select go-around, didn't add power.
So underspeed protection, to be honest with you,
that's a good one.
Is literally the one thing we never practice. An actual go-around when it counts. So it's not as big of a deal in the two piloted airplanes,
right?
But it is 100% take rate for us in the King Air market. That's a single pilot flown.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And really for the underspeed is allows for a couple go rounds, and that is really the big benefit. And you can get real busy, real close to the ground, and what this does is won't allow you to stall the airplane. So,
we were showing those images of Aspen, of all those guys going in Aspen. Yeah. That go-around procedure in Aspen is
not fun.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. And so that's a fair point. That is a really fair point. And of course, the one little thing that everybody wants, the FlightStream 510, which connects the avionics to your iPad.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite thing to watch the engineers talk about, because I've never seen them get so excited about such a small piece of hardware. But believe it or not, that little gray thing that looks like an SD card is actually a Wi-Fi chip, a Bluetooth receiver, and 16 gigs of RAM that fit in a SD card slot. Also has 16 gigs of RAM in there as well, or 16 gigs of data in there. So the cool thing is it starts opening up portals for us, which means not the sci-fi portals, but will allow you to communicate via the iPad. Both Garmin Pilot and ForeFlight will work with that, and we can move with Garmin Pilot databases back and forth. We can move your position data, the weather. You can select what radio station you're listening to, what volume it's on. Literally, it is one of the most amazing access points to such a great wealth of information.
And when you say radio station, you mean XM.
XM radio stations, correct.
And this is mainly around the cockpit area, right?
Correct. This is not intended for use in the back. This is for the guys up front. Now, when I say that, the Bluetooth audio, very specifically, if it's not wired into the back, the guys up front have the option to listen to XM audio.
Right.
I will say I'm usually wheels up, flaps up, music on kind of guy, but we'll see.
I think the big thing when I used this once was the what if I was going into that storm, saw on XM, I'm going into a bad place. There, center comes back, says, hey, you need to do something. So I could sit on the iPad, build out a new flight plan around this, pick out the fixes, pick out what I wanted. And I said, hey, I've got this reroute. Of course, they're going to say, sure. And then I just pushed it straight into the flight plan, loaded it, done.
Yep.
It's nothing. I didn't spend any time loading that flight plan in.
Yeah, that's a great point. I left out here is flight plan transfer.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about what you just mentioned there is actually the autopilot stays engaged with whatever you were doing. And then once you load it, the pilot actually has to accept it. And then you go through.
Yeah. Okay. Keep moving through. Chart view. For the guys that love jet charts, you can load those. Otherwise, the NOS government charts. Ground clutter, turbulence detection. That's kind of just makes radar operations
for your
a little
pilots that
easier.
don't know how to use a radar, this helps them. So for
Okay.
the rest of us.
Sounds good. And of course, this all comes in a package. And Jeff, I think you've been quoting this as a full awareness protection package.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has everything really as far as a popular items for a package right here. Instead of trying to break it out into separate items, boom, you've got the awareness and protection package. It covers your flight stream, your underspeed, your surface watch. So it really gets you the highlights of what most operators want.
And so I'm kind of jumping over to the CPDLC. I got to tell you, I mean, that's no one's really talking about it because we're tired. We're just like, oh my God, we're coming over an ADS-B hangover. Mm-hmm. But this technology is coming out there, and I think it's going to be, once they see it, everybody's going to want this, and especially the controllers are going to want you to have this.
Yeah, once they use it.
Yeah.
I mean, once they're involved in a flight plan or transitioning, they're going to want to stay with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be just like the guy that could fly to that one runway that no one had because he was the only one with LPV.
Right.
So
right.
It'll be the same thing. When the guys are served with these that could do the digital clearances, it'll be the same thing.
It will be. But I think now, kind of trying to wrap this up here, is I think the home run as far as operation and the cost of the G5000 has to be the repair costs.
Yeah, so the comma's in the right place. That's not misplaced there. So we actually grew up in an area where the operator and owner was very conscious about repairs and ongoing. So our DNA had never been to make that a profit center, like a massive profit center for us. So what we had to do is we try to stay in that same realm if that's what got us here, and we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Now I will say this: these are the repair costs. Now these are repairs, not exchanges. We do offer exchanges; they are more than this. But even if it was 3 times as much, it's still ridiculously cheaper than what's out in the market right now. And this is really what's served us so well on CAS that we just don't have a HAP or CAS program.
Right.
So to that mention, if you wanted an add-on extended warranty for this, would all happen through Pro Parts.
Okay.
So
that's a good point.
They've accepted through all that, and it's all good. And they've actually discounted the rate through based on our exchanges.
Yeah.
So it's good all the way around. And you're right. Just cost of ownership of Garmin is dramatically cheaper than what's currently in the market.
Okay, and so that's kind of the point. So since you left so much money on the table here, you got to make it up on the databases, right?
Yeah, so we definitely don't do that. So we offer Jeppesen as the nav data because a lot of guys really do prefer that. And if you fly worldwide, that's definitely going to be where you're going to go.
Yeah.
If you fly domestically, we have a great way to save some cash. For less than $4,500 a year, you're going to get all of the databases. When I mean all, we're not just talking nav data.
So that was the thing. A lot of times it's just nav data most of these guys are getting.
Yep.
You're getting everything?
You're getting everything. You're getting the nav data, obstacles, safe taxi, airport directories, flight charts, the IFR. That one day you fly VFR, we'll have your charts on board for you. Terrain, base maps, all the frequency databases. All of that is loaded every 28 days via your FlightStream 510 wirelessly.
Oh, that's true.
So for that DOM, I just gave you another hug. So that is, you're not going to go out there with a USB stick or power on cart and use the old floppies or whatever god awful things you had to
His
do.
iPad will do it.
Yeah, now the iPad will link to it. Usually will take 3 to 5 minutes. If you have all of those databases due, you're going to be in there for about 10 minutes. So
Okay.
It's really not that bad.
Because it automatically uploads to Garmin Pilot. So your iPad will just sit there and it'll download it without you having to do anything.
As long as it's connected to the internet,
Right.
it will call home every night and say, hey, do I have databases? If it says, yes, I do, it'll automatically download it into Garmin Pilot. You'll bring the iPad in. Once the 510 has power to it, it'll turn on Wi-Fi and look for your iPad. It says, hey, there'll be a handshake saying, hey, do you have databases for me? And it'll say, yes. Via the Wi-Fi, we'll punt all that data in there, store it on that MFD originally, It'll verify all the data for us, and then once all that's complete, it will push to the other two.
Jeez.
And it will do everything for you without having to monkey around.
I know we're running long here, but I have to. So Jeff, you did database uploads probably using floppy drives?
Oh yeah.
How long were you in the cockpit for
days, days. There was a time where we had to go out just real quick. I was out in Denver. I was trying to update an airplane. It was 7 disks to load this thing. We had a batch of bad disks.
Oh,
nobody carried floppies anymore. We had to go find a specialty store in the middle of Denver. Then we had to find a computer with a 3.5-inch floppy disk to load them onto. So, I mean, it took us a better part of 6 hours to get database.
I just remember whenever you came to the cockpit and one of those guys was in there, don't speak to them. It will never go well. Just leave them alone. Yeah. They're very mad. So I think kind of why G5000?
So obviously for me, the reliability, and we're not talking about new installations, like us versus Honeywell. What we're talking about is what you currently have in the airplane today. Your dispatch reliability, obviously you're going to have new warranty. Even when you're out of warranty, your lower cost of parts are considerably less. We lean on this quite a bit. We've been now voted number 1 for 16 years in a row for product support. That's not just our low warranty cost. That is actually our FSEs, our tech manuals.
It is. You guys do a lot of good things.
And that's there. And we're really trying to develop our Part 25 presence. And there have been a lot of us out there. We've met a lot of the new DOMs. We're out in that market a lot more now. You may have met me or my counterpart, Dave Brown, or even Creighton out in the field. We've been out quite a bit. Our lower database costs, again, you'll see a lot of this is just producing value for the owner. And the owner writing the checks, the owner of the guy managing the airplane, and the owner of the actual flight, the PIC. So across the line, we're trying to just increase value.
And I think, so obviously that and the resale value of this, and that's always a question, and that's a tough one because you can't exactly quote you're going to get X percent, but you've seen it on the King Airs,
and we've seen it on other programs too, where say you invested $350,000 into the installation, that Blue Book has proven, and it's shown out there that the value now has increased by $375,000. So you've actually gotten an additional lump on top of what you put into the airplane. So it's something that will increase the value.
And you've seen it on the Beach Jets too.
Absolutely. So I've had some Beach Jets that were bought for less than $1 million, got a fresh coat of paint, our avionics, a little bit of touch up in the interior, going over $2 million.
Right.
So they're it's not pimp my ride flip airplanes, but the guy who's investing the dollars is not just throwing money in a hole.
Yeah.
So it is actually something they're going to get back.
And I think, to me, still, I think the biggest thing on any, I don't care what kind of airplane it is, avionics upgrade, it is dealing with the rising navigation, regulatory, safety demands. I mean, we all want to be safer, and it's not to say we're unsafe without good avionics, but we all know once we have them, we're a lot more safe. Yeah. It's just easier to handle a lot more data. And of course, with a new, when I say the regulatory, we got CPDLC. We're going to come right here into questions. Candy's got this question. I figured we might as well just hit it real quick. Back on CPDLC, this will be more for you, Jim. The options.
So the great thing here is that if you decide to do the domestic datacom, we just need to add a GDR66, which is our datacom essentially. And then if you want to go to full-blown fans, we can bring in the GSR56, which is our Iridium modem, with the GDR66, and then a complete package with the software upgrade will give you complete fans. We can do a Link 2000. So as far as any of those that you want to do, we can do. Those are options up front. You could technically add them later, but you're going to pay a lot more on the installation side. So if it's something that you're interested, do up front, and you should be good to go.
Alan's got a quick question about checklists. Okay. Can we load checklists on this?
Great question, Alan. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. We've actually had the G5000, yes, can do checklists. The question I have is who is supplying said checklist.
Okay.
So we can have a way where if you want to design one for your flight ops, you can actually go into the checklist editor that we created and hand draw out whatever you want. And that is a great project for an intern.
Right.
So, but we are obviously partnering with Flight Safety.
Okay.
And they are looking at something, and they obviously want to do digital.
Okay.
I just don't know where that's at.
So wrapping this up, also why Duncan Aviation. Now, Jeff you've really been the key point for G5000 at Duncan. The G5000, we've already got one started. I know there are more coming.
Yep, we've got one. We've got Robert Duncan's airplane. He's got an XLS in work right now, and right on the heels, we have an XL coming in at the end of October. So we're rolling right into it. And
so it's not like we're doing this webinar and like, hey, one of these days we're going to do a G5000. We're knee deep.
Yeah, no, we're knee deep in it. We're discovering everything that's going along with the STC, along with any new program. You run into speed bumps and whatnot and learning curves,
right.
But after you get through them, then you can really become more efficient and kind of streamline things.
And I think the other thing is the one-stop shop. You deal with that a lot because you're on the avionics side, but you're tight with all the other.
Yeah, well,
paint interior.
Yeah, as a sales team, I mean, we have our group there, and sitting by each other, we can play off, and we focus on the Citation products.
Right.
And so usually, a lot of operators, when they're inquiring about this, we explain to them the downtime. You're about a 4 to 6 week downtime, depending on what you're getting done. And that downtime will get better as more are installed. But we try and help utilize that downtime, maintenance, paint, interior. The interior's coming out.
Right.
Do you want to put the same interior back in? Do you want to take that wear and tear? It's now is the time. If the airplane's down, you're going to invest that money into the avionics, invest into the whole airplane, and help as a package bring that value of that airplane back.
But I think the big thing there is the employee experience. I mean, you've been here for 10 years. Some of the guys, I mean, you've worked on Excels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge.
Well, Duncan as a whole has been working on Citations, I want to say, since the late 70s. So over 40 years.
And that's the thing. I mean, and that's one of the bullet points is Excel experience or Citation experience.
Or Citations, excuse me.
Any company can say, hey, we've been working on Citations for 50 years. The truth is like how many of the people at the company have been doing it? And I think that's the difference with Duncan.
Well, and it's one neat point that I always love bragging about is our retention rate.
Yeah.
The average retention of an employee here is above 14 years. So the average person on the floor is over 14 years. And, when you're talking 2,600 employees, I mean, that's a huge number. I mean, it's impossible to try and factor in how many years total, but absolutely. I mean, you're thousands of years.
And that's the thing. Like. And, and again, another why Duncan is, we're probably the only, and Jim, you can throw rocks at me if I'm lying here, the only G5000 installation facility where we have 27 facilities around the country to support the install. We could do the install at these other places. So maybe you don't have one-stop shopping and you just want to do an avionics upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, if you're wanting to do just an avionics upgrade, we do have, like you were mentioning, our satellite facilities, our avionics satellite facilities where their focus is avionics.
Right.
That's what they do day in and day out. And if that's all they're wanting to do is just all I want is G5000 upgrade or any other avionics work, boom, we've got satellite facilities that can do that. Now, granted, there's smaller ones, but there's larger ones that can handle that.
There's some big ones there, and that's the thing. If you want to keep the airplane close to home, we can do that. But even better, no matter where you get the install done, you have a facility close to you, no matter where you're at in the United States. If anything goes wrong, Duncan's going to be close to you.
Yeah, coverage of the U.S.'s support is. I mean, we've got the whole U.S. covered.
Yeah. And, of course, we're privately owned, and I don't want to go too far into that. It is extremely important, especially to the employees at Duncan. When you work for a company that's owned by venture capitalists or corporate or anything, sometimes your vision gets compromised. At Duncan, being privately owned has been a big deal for us. We're going to jump into questions quick because we are running really long. Candy, you've got a few questions here. We're going to get to a few more. One of them, of course, is Jeff. How long does it take to install this?
Like I was saying before, right now, being the first one that we've done, with the XLS, it's a learning process on the STC. So we're getting through it. This one took a little bit longer than we anticipated, but the next one will be shorter. You're going to gain efficiencies as the more you go through it. Unlike what most people would think, not every Citation is same coming off the line. Not every XL is going to be the same. They're all made differently. So there's going to be things that we come across. And one thing to think about is the prerequisites that are required for the STC.
And that kind of goes into it. Might as well talk about both of them. Cost. People are talking about what's it cost to do this upgrade.
So, cost,
right in there.
It really depends on what options they're selecting. But if you go baseline, it goes down again to the prerequisites. There's items that are required to have before the install can be completed.
Right.
And, it's all aircraft dependent, individual aircraft dependent. And so the best thing to do is contact me. Let me know what you've got. Provide me a SESCOM 10 or an equipment list, a service bulletin list, because there's service bulletins that need to be complied with as well before this install can take place. So, I can give a broad range of about 515 to 525 for a baseline. But until we see what the aircraft is equipped with and what's been done to the airplane, it's hard to give an exact price.
And so that kind of fits right into Candy's question. Is she's looking at buying an airplane.
So the thing here is that we've had pretty good success with getting our ADS-B solution, which is a pair of GTX 3000s with a GDL 88 WAS on board a lot of these aircraft already. So Candy, if you're looking for an aircraft out there, check and see if they did the Garmin ADS-B solution. That is transferable. So if they pay for it to sell it, when Duncan goes to order the parts, we have 2 kits available, one with transponders, one's without. Obviously, the ones without is less. So you're not going to have to pay for that twice. So if you're looking for an aircraft, to find the one with the Garmin transponders in it, you already have a deposit down on the 5000 essentially.
Right.
If not, and if you need to get this done, you're going to need to get the STC done for the it's a third-party STC from another provider, but any of the Garmin dealers can do it. Duncan here can put the transponders in at one of the satellite shops, either Denver, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I know the guy in Florida loves putting them in.
Yep.
So that would be awesome. Just reach out to the local Duncan shop, and they can throw them in there for you. Mm-hmm. And Duncan can order those from us. And I think going price for that is, $75.
Back on the satellites, if you're not sure where the satellites are at, if you go to duncanaviation.aero, we have a link on there that gives you a location of all of our satellite facilities and contact information.
Very, very good point, because, there's a lot out there. Jim, here's a good question. Training, courses, full motion sim. So would they do this upgrade? What happens?
That is one of our top 10 questions. A lot of pushback on pilot training. And we come to find out we have a great partner in the True and flight safety kind of combined together. And they have are looking heavily and are getting really near a full motion sim for the Citation, for the XLXLS for G5000. So we're hoping to have everyone focus in on one location and go through there. I don't want to steal too much of their thunder if it's not already out there, but that is going to be something that we're really pushing on towards. So the good news there is if you have an M2 or Latitude, a Longitude, or a 10, you're already trained, essentially.
Right.
It's the same exact thing. And then you'll have a differences courses essentially right away.
Cool. One last question.
So a good question. How is the integration with the TCAS 2? The TCAS 2 remains. The components that stay are your TCAS 2 and your AHARS. Other than that, all of the equipment is replaced. So there is a integration with the existing TCAS 2 system. So there's no problems there.
Perfect.
We've kind of gone long here. Got anything else, Jim?
Nope. Fact checker. I have someone that is listening abroad that is telling me the domestic datacom for CPDLC is for the GDL 66.
Right.
I'm not sure what I said before, but it's the GDL 66.
I wonder if you said like a GDL.
Probably something. But that's out there.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's been kind of fun. I really like the format.
Yeah, this was fun. For more information, you got Jeff and myself. Feel free to email us at any time, and we can get you what you need, whether it's just a one-stop G5000 upgrade, or if you want to do a full avionics, paint interior engines, we can take care of you there too. So again, we'll stay online here for a little bit longer. If you guys got any questions, we'll stay here and listen to what you've got. And other than that, we're going to be doing more G5000. I think we've already talked about another G5000 webinar, more on installation, because we're getting our installation done. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a webinar talking about the installation. We're also going to have some of our pilots who are going to be flying that aircraft, who also have been flying G3000 in the M2. So that'll be a good one, because they'll have a lot of good data on there. Anyway, that's all we got for now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you all soon.